It's elementary. I don't spit no G, I spit A-C and P. F-U-C-A, you better listen, and maybe you'll pick up some of the class that you've been missing. Don't make me repeat myself.
All right. So I want to say a few words today about the creative project. Usually I do this in the middle of the term, and I moved it to the second week because I thought we were only going to be online for 2 weeks and then I'd be able to see you in person. And I thought it would be good to record this session so that you could review it later, because I wasn't planning on having everything available as recordings at that time. And so I've left it here because everything's complicated enough as it is, and I'm curious to see what it's like to put this at the front. But what I would encourage you to do is to come back before you write your proposal and before you do your creative project and review this part of the lesson, and or read the written version of this lesson, which is up on the site as week 2's lesson. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a brief introduction to the project, and then there's more information on the website under lessons week 2, and I will try to review that to some extent with you much later in the term when it's closer to your project. So one thing to begin with that I don't know if I have a slide for here is these are individual projects. It's not a group project. I will let you work with someone else if there's some compelling reason for you to do that, but on the whole, I don't. And if you do work with someone else, you will have to share whatever mark the project gets, obviously. But it's not intended to be a group project. It's intended to be something that you do yourself individually. Although the project itself is only worth 20%, and it's fairly easy to get most or all of those marks because you just have to follow the instructions, even if what you do is garbage, which I won't be, but anyway, there are other marks associated with it that make this a fairly substantial part of the course anyway. So there's a proposal for which you get 5 marks. There's a workshop that you have to attend to get 5 marks, and that's the second to the last week of class at this time. All right, a few more things. Instead of reading you everything I've written on the site, because I can direct you there, and I will direct you there before you write your proposal later in the term, I'm just going to hit some highlights here today. This might seem very obvious, but you'd be amazed. I have had people turn things in and they didn't actually appropriate anyone else's creative work, so they weren't actually remix projects. So you must appropriate someone else's creation for this project. You can't do your own original cartoon or something that has no appropriation aspect to it. You must identify and link to everything you appropriate. So later on, when you are submitting your project on Blackboard in the discussion board, you also have to indicate everything you've appropriated. And I don't mean well, this is mainly based on this Kanye video that, I mean everything. So if you're finding stuff, Googling YouTube images, this is going to be a different experience this time. You need to, I'll come to that in a minute, Braden, thank you. But you need to identify where it came from, because I'm asking you in the class to look at the context you're taking stuff from and to understand the context. Many times the context comes along with something you appropriate, and it's worth knowing that to do meaningful and intelligent appropriation. You can appropriate someone's likeness, Braden, yes, but again, it would be also worth knowing where that likeness appeared, where you're appropriating it from. So you can't draw Donald Trump, for instance. You have to appropriate someone else's, I mean, I would almost say media, but I don't want to be too hidebound about this, but something that was created by somebody else. I hope that answers your question. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's more of an idea of using somebody's likeness. Like, say, for instance, I wanted to do a short video GIF or something like that, and I dressed up as a certain pop culture character doing something different that kind of, again, like you said, isn't just a joke, but has meaning behind it.
Right. I'm sure that would be entertaining, but I don't think it's appropriate for this class based on, I mean, as a very quick answer, but you send me an email and we can discuss it more. But you need to be taking something that was already created by somebody else. And although you could argue that some pop idol's image was created by somebody else, that's not really, I don't think that will work in this class. So, but again, we can talk about it more, okay? You should post audio and video files. So this is if you make an audio or a video file, okay? A lot of you will probably be making images, but if you make some kind of audio file or video file, you should put it somewhere other than Blackboard and link to it there so that there's no danger of Blackboard not feeding it on the showcase day or me having a hard time watching it or something like that. So don't attach it as a, don't attach it to your submission. But actually put it somewhere else. And if you think there's a worry about that because of legal and so on, then talk to me about it again. Can you cover a song? Yes. But again, when we have the proposal time, I'm going to be talking to you about that. You can't do a sing over of a karaoke thing or whatever where you try to sound like the person that recorded the song. If you're going to cover a song, you need to change it somehow, so that it's a different kind of feel, so that there's a different kind of meaning, if you will, to the song and so on. But sorry, I can't follow all the chats here. No, you don't have to be in it at all. I wouldn't expect you to be. So on the whole, if you're appropriating video and remixing it or mashing it up somehow, you're not going to be in the video. The only time you will appear is during the showcase if we look at your project, and we won't look at everybody's, and we say, okay, what were you doing here? Or, or we start talking about it, because it's really going to be a workshop where we talk about, well, how well did this work and how well didn't it? It's not just for you to show off how talented you are and for us to go ooh-ah or for us to have a great time. Hopefully we'll have those experiences too, we usually do. But it's actually to think about the decisions that we all made and so on. So at least some members of your audience must recognize what you appropriate, or at least be able to understand what kind of thing it is. So this is directed at people who maybe come from a different culture and want to use something, traditional Filipino music or something, but nobody in the class is going to recognize it or know what you're doing with it. It needs to be something that people can understand that you've appropriated. And ideally, I would say the last part of this should even apply to me, so that I would be able to understand what kind of thing you've appropriated, even if I'm not familiar with that pop song or whatever, which I probably won't be. So again, the idea here is that you're doing something that people can understand. And I would ask myself, will at least a quarter or a third of the people in the class recognize what's being appropriated here? Will most of them understand what kind of thing is being appropriated? This is a rap video with misogyny in it or whatever, and that's pretty clear to everybody. It's not like they don't know what's going on here or something. You must include a version that can be seen, heard, or experienced in under 5 minutes. So if you make a 20-minute video, you're welcome to do that, but you need to give us a clip so that we don't have to spend 20 minutes reviewing what you've done, and then you can describe the rest of it. People often make an object of some kind, not often, but it happens. They make something that's not digital, it's analog, and they bring it into the class at the end, and if you do that, you should take a picture of it, obviously, for this, or even a video around it if it's a 3D object that you think would be good for people to be able to see it, so that we can get a good sense of it, even though it's virtual. And then when you're submitting it, you must write a short description with your submission and explain what you appropriated and why. So, I mean, you can see I'm taking quite a bit of the fun out of being creative and showing off, and I would hate this class if I were taking it. I would hate this aspect of it anyway. But again, the idea here is that we can all learn something by actually analyzing what we're doing, and that, instead of worrying that that you want to make the best creative remix project and that you want everybody to be really impressed with you, We're going to treat it as more of a learning experience. This is the rubric for the actual project, the 20 marks for the project that you submit. And these are the kinds of marks you get. Doing it on time and submitting it in the proper place, 4 marks. If you don't, you lose those 4 marks. Following all instructions carefully. For instance, appropriating someone else's creative work, listing and linking to your sources, that's worth 4 marks. If you don't do those things, you'll lose those marks. Thinking carefully about what you are appropriating, choosing something that at least some members of the class will recognize, taking into account Jim's feedback on your proposal, which you'll get eventually, right? That also will be another 4 marks out of this 20. Using the appropriation meaningfully. I'll talk more about that in a minute. So, I mean, I don't want to overemphasize the idea of saying something with your project, but in a sense, that is what I'm trying to encourage you to experiment here, or having some idea what the effect of your project is going to be on your audience. And then there's 4 marks for the effectiveness of what you intended to do. And that, of course, is a bit subjective on my part, but I mean, people often get 20 marks for this thing, okay? I'm not out to get anybody or anything like that. And I'm usually impressed by the amount of work and thought that went into most projects, So anyway, again, you can review this rubric closer to the time, and I would, and say, well, did I do what he said here? I mean, if you care about marks. I mean, I've had people get 100 marks in this class, or 99, but it's possible to fail too, so choose your poison. Some things that you can't do, and I'm gonna hear some groans if we were live, but here we go. And they're all great things and fun, but you can't do them for this project. At least you'd have to talk to me about it and really negotiate with me about it. Image macros, GIFs with sound, and similar simple internet meme genres, which is what I'm going to be talking about in a minute. Okay? You can't just make a meme for this class, and I'll talk to you more about why in a minute. You can't make a ready-made, which is something I'll be talking to you about next week if you've never heard the term before. And you'll see why, I think, when I talk to you about it next week. The kind of appropriation art that's called technically appropriation art that was done in the 1980s in the United States and England, and maybe other places. I'm not sure exactly where it really hit. But anyway, as explained next week, you can't do that, okay? Literary cut-ups. So that's when you take like a book page and you cut it up and put it in some kind of random order. And again, the reason is because I'm trying to get you to do something intentional with some kind of meaning. You can't do an instrumental cover version. So I've had people who are very talented play the piano, for their project, and now I don't let them do that anymore because it has no meaning. It might be nice to listen to and we might enjoy it, which is great, but it's not a project that lets you or forces you to experiment with thinking about what you're doing. Instrumental or mostly instrumental remixes. So again, I told you about one last week. It was like, hey, mama, say the way you move, and somebody, some really good house beats behind it or whatever, but no. And a mostly instrumental dub. So I'll be talking to you about dub, and I love dub, but you can't do that for your project because, again, it's instrumental, largely meaningless, and best, just to smoke weed and listen to when you're alone. Karaoke sing-overs, that's what I was mentioning earlier. So if you're going to do a cover, it needs to be doing something new with the song and not just trying to show that you can sing a song you love or whatever. And then track hacks, which I think I'll get to today, time pending. I call these track hacks or track hacking, and you can look on my site for more information. But basically, when you just take a track and use your computer to speed it up, slow it down, or even something a bit more complex than that, which hopefully I'll have a chance to show you in the future today. That stuff's all really interesting to me, but it's not appropriate for this class. So again, sorry if you're like a vaporwave producer and you were really looking forward to wowing us with your I'd be happy to see or hear your vaporwaves compositions, but it's not for this class, not for the project. And our ultimate goal is for you to be doing this work, having been informed by the history and ideas that I present to you, and my encouragement to you to think about what you're doing.
And finally, one last thing that you should know about me before you submit this project.
Well, I was Josh Safdie's muse when he wrote Anka Joms,